All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishwadaya Krishna Stabila Smati Buddhijam Prabhu Namane Namo Vishwadaya Krishna Stabila Smati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste. Saraswati. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 9, which is Liberation, Chapter 11, text number 20. Okay, so this is Raksho Vadho Jaladi Bandhanamastra Pugai Kim Tasya Satruhanane Kapaya Sahayaha Nedam Yasora Gupate Sura Yachnayata Leela Tanora Dika Samya Vimukta Dhamnaha Raksho Vado Jaladi Bandhanamastra Pugai Kim Tasya Satruhanane Kapaya Sahayaha Nedam Yasora Gupate Surayachnayata Leela Tanora Dika Samya Vimukta Dhamnaha Raksho Vado Jaladi Bandhanamastra Pugai Kim Tasya Satruhanane Kapaya Sahayaha Nedam Yasora Gupate Surayachnayata Leela Tanora Dika Samya Vimukta Danaha Raksho Vado Jaladi Bandhanamastra Pugai Kim Tasya Satruhanane Kapaya Sahayaha Raksho Vado Jaladi Bandhanamastra Pugai Kim Tasya Satruhanane Kapaya Sahayaha. Ladies, Nedam Yasora Gupate Surayachnayata Leela Tanora Dika Samya Vimukta Dhamnaha Raksho Vado Jaladi Bandhanamastra Pugai Kim Satya Kapaya Sahayaha Nedam Yasora Gupate Surayachnayata Leela Tanora Dikasamya Vimukta Dhamnaha Raksho Vadai Jaladi Bandhana Mastra Pugai Kim Tasya Satru Hanane Kapaya Sahayaha Nedam Yaso Ragupate Surayachnayata Leela Tanora Dikasamya Vimukta Dhamnaha Raksho Vado Jaladi Bandhana Mastra Pogai Kim Tasya Satru Anane Kapaya Sahayaha Nedam Yaso Ragupate Surayachnayata Leela Tanora Dikasamya Vimukta Dhamnaha Raksho Vado Jaladi Bandhana Mastra Pugai Kim Tasya Satru Hanane Kapaya Sahaya Na, not Idam, all these Yashaha, fame, Raghupate, of Lord Ramchandra, Surayachnaya, by the prayers of the demigods, Atta-Leela Tanayo, whose spiritual body is always engaged in various pastimes. Adhika Samya Vimukta Dhamnaha. No one is greater. No one is greater than or equal to him. Rakshavadaha, killing the Rakshasa. Ravana, Jaladi Bandhanam, bridging the ocean. Astrapugai, with bow and arrow, for having killed Ravana with showers of arrows at the request of the demigods, and for having built a bridge over the ocean, does not constitute the factual glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramchandra, whose spiritual body is always engaged in various pastimes. Lord Ramchandra has no equal or superior, and therefore he had no need to take help from the monkeys to gain victory over Ravana. Purport. As stated in the Vedas, Svetasvatara Upanishad 6.8, Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate, natat samaschabhyadikas cha drishyate, parasya shakti vividaiva sruyate, svabhavikya jnana bala kriya cha. The Supreme Lord has nothing to do, and no one is found to be equal to or greater than him, for everything is done naturally and systematically by his multifarious energies. The Lord has nothing to do. Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. Whatever he does is his pastime. The Lord has no duty to perform to oblige anyone. Nonetheless, he appears to act to protect his devotees or kill his enemies. Of course, no one can be the Lord's enemy, since who could be more powerful than the Lord? There is actually no question of anyone's being his enemy, but when the Lord wants to take pleasure in pastimes, he comes down to this material world and acts like a human being, thus showing his wonderful, glorious activities to please the devotees. His devotees always want to see the Lord victorious in varied activities, and therefore to please himself and them, the Lord sometimes agrees to act as a human being and perform wonderful, uncommon pastimes for the satisfaction of the devotees. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmaye Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadaha Mahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinatavinam. So, why is Lord Ramchandra killing Ravana? And why is Lord Ramchandra building a bridge over the ocean to Lanka? Why has Lord Ram accepted the banishment, right, by his father to go and live in the forest? Why has Lord Ramchandra killed the demons? Why is he killing the demons? So, there's a clue, or two, given here. To please himself. Huh? And who else? The devotees. Yeah. To please himself and the devotees, the Lord sometimes agrees to act as a human being. Paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya chatuskritam Dharma samstapanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. So this is a characteristic or a feature of the Lord, that he appears in the form of a human being, yet at the same time he exhibits extraordinary activities. The foolish and uninformed, the unintelligent, think that he's just an ordinary person. Although maybe have some extra powers, extra. But Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, for those who understand the transcendental nature, Jammakama Chame Divyam, those who know that the Lord's activities, even though he appears as a human being, and he appears even to be dictated to by others, right, that he still remains fully transcendental and fully independent. Right? And that those pastimes and those activities are a display of his independence and his transcendence. Even though there may be similarities between the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and those of ordinary human beings, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is never subject to the material laws. He's fully independent and transcendent. So, it mentions here, Lord Ramchandra has no equal or superior, and so therefore has no need to take help from monkeys, for example, to conquer Ravana. So why does he do that? Prabhupada quotes here the first verse in the purport is this, a verse that Prabhupada quotes often. Natasya karyam karanam cha vijjate. He doesn't have to do anything. Right? Just like us. We have responsibilities and duties, right? Depending on ashram, depending on varna, we have, we have requisite activities that we must perform. It's our duty to maintain ourselves and to maintain others, for that matter. Right? Like if you're a student, what do you have to do? What's your duty? Study, yes. If you're a householder, what is your duty? Look after your family. Yeah, look after your family, which often means work. Actually, it's very interesting. All ashrams and varnas are defined by activities, right? By work. And one's expected to perform those duties and those activities because it's a duty, right? May not be pleasant. Who likes going to school? Raise your hands. Okay, very good. I never liked going to school. Prabhupada gives the example, children don't want to school, but parents must make them go to school because ultimately it's for the benefit of the child, right? Education is beneficial for everybody. So even the vanaprasthas have activities and responsibilities, and the sannyasis, the renunciants, also they have actions that are recommended for them. But Krishna, even though he appears, and this is the interesting thing, Krishna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, doesn't have to accept these responsibilities, yet interestingly, sometimes he does, right? He accepts being the son of Dasarath. He accepts being the ruler. He accepts being the husband of Sita. And so has, and performs activities as if he has these responsibilities, but actually he doesn't. He does it simply for his own pleasure and for the pleasure of the devotees. He doesn't do it because he's bound to do it by the laws of Dharma. Although very interesting, Lord Ramchandra's pastimes illustrate and highlight the responsibilities of Dharma. and the importance of Dharma. Right? Interestingly, And so the pastimes of the Lord present themselves as a conundrum for some, but are appreciated by the devotees because they understand the Lord doesn't have to do anything. He can just play in Goloka Vrindavan with his friends and the cows and the calves, and just have a relaxing time in the spiritual world. Right? It's called, what is it called? What's the spiritual world called? Vaikuntha. And what does Vaikuntha mean? No worries. Australians like it. It's a place of no worries. So then why does the Lord appear and in his pastimes have to accept anxiety? Well, actually for him it's not anxiety at all. But he kills so many demons. And it's very interesting. In this particular pastime, Lord Ram demonstrates the sweetness of his pastimes in some very interesting ways, which are endearing to the devotees. Just like on the weekend at the Janmashtami cultural festival, whenever Lord Ram killed a demon, right, or Krishna killed a demon, what happened? Everybody was cheering and clapping. Hey, woohoo! And so, not very pleasant for the demons. Actually, a benediction for the demons, right? And a source of great pleasure for the devotees. But it's very interesting that Lord Ram exhibited the symptoms of a king adhering to Dharma. And one of the ways that he did that was by obeying the order of his father. Right? This is Dharma. You have to obey the order of your father. Is that right? That's right. Generally that's right, isn't it? But the interesting thing was that his father was banishing him from being crowned as the king and sending him to the forest. Why? Because he'd promised his wife that he would give her a benediction, right? And she said, not now, but when the time comes, I'll ask for the benediction, right? So it's very interesting that the whole kingdom of Ayodhya was preparing and was waiting in anticipation for Lord Ram's coronation. Right? And then Dasarath says, go to the forest. Bharat is to be the king. Right? And why was that? Was because his wife, Kaikeya, is it? She wanted her son, Ram's younger brother, but a stepbrother, right, to be on the throne. And so that's, she'd been By bad association, her mind had been turned, right? Such that even though Lord Ramchandra was the rightful heir, she wanted her son out of what mood or what motive, what was her mood in wanting Bharat to be the king? What would we call that? Selfish? Selfish, yeah, maybe. What else? What do we call that? Huh? Bias. Yes, bias, certainly. The bias was towards her son. What else would we call that? If you want something that somebody else has got, what's that called? Envy. Yes. Ouch. That's not pleasant, is it? If somebody wants what you've got and they take it away from you, how do you feel? And it belongs to you. How do you feel about that? Feel bad. Now, isn't it interesting? Right? Now, was Dasaratha doing the right thing or the wrong thing? What was he doing? Do you think? We can speculate here a little bit. Okay? What do you think? Was Dasaratha doing the right thing or the wrong thing? Banishing his son, his beloved son, Ram, and then installing his younger son as the king. Did he do the right thing or the wrong thing? What do you think? The wrong thing. No, but he made a promise. Right, so he's doing the right thing. Right? Especially, if you're a husband and you make a promise to your wife, what do you have to do? Huh? Fulfill it. This is theoretical coming from you. What about from the gentleman here? The married gentleman, there's only one. If you make a promise to your wife, what do you have to do? You think about it. My advice is don't think about it for too long, okay? Right, so it's very interesting, you see. Dasaratha, so here's the thing. If Lord Ram is the upholder of Dharma, and Dasaratha was doing the wrong thing, then he could have challenged him. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, after all, right? But did he? No. He honoured the promise of his father to Kaikeyi, right? Very interesting. We're scratching our heads thinking, what did I do that for? Right? But upholding the principle of honouring one's father, he accepted the order, even though many were, even now, confused. Why did he do that? You know what my father used to say? My father said many things, but one of the things that he said was, anything for a quiet life. So anyway, now the question may be, and I think this is fairly clear, Kaikeyi, did she do the right thing? Did she do the right thing? What do we think? What do you think? Got a few no's, and a few people don't want to say anything. No, it's fairly clear that she did the wrong thing. Right? Pretty clear. And here's another interesting. So there's a certain rasa in this. There's a certain experience that we have when we hear this. Right? There's a feeling. You get a feeling. What's the feeling that you get when you hear this? How do you feel? This, you might have to think, just reflect for a minute. How do you feel? Now, okay, well, let's paint a little bit more of the picture. Bharat, who Dasarath said, you should now be the king, did he want to be the king? No. He didn't want to be the king. So even though he was installed to be the king, what did he do? Padukas. Yeah, so what did that mean? What did his actions after the coronation mean to the rest of the citizens? That was the explicit, that's what he did, but what was the message? One at a time. You were telling the story. So we're handing it over to you. What did he mean by doing that? Sibya? Lord Ram's actually the king, the emperor. What were you going to say? He's doing it on behalf of Lord Ram. Yes, yeah, also. So he's acting as a what? How is Bharat acting? As a servant. Although we know actually that Ram, Bharat, Lakshman and Shatrughna, they're all Vishnu Tattva. Right? They're all an expansion of the Supreme Person. Interesting, huh? They're all God, effectively. And in the Brahma Samhita it's explained how they're all the same potency, like one candle lit from another is of the same power and potency as the original candle. Right, so they're all expansions of Lord Ram, yet it's interesting, Bharat didn't say, yeah, now I should be the king. Right? No, he took on the role of the younger brother of the emperor, and so by putting Lord Ram's padukas on the throne or on the footstool? Anyway, obviously he didn't take the throne, right? He kept. So how does it, just think about this, how does this make you feel? What's your internal response to this pastime? Reflect for 30 seconds. How does it make you feel?
As being a citizen.
Huh?
As being a citizen. As being a citizen.
As being a devotee in Albert Park. A Hare Krishna devotee who lives in... Do you live in Albert Park? How does it make you feel? And then, to add to that, Lord Ram goes to the forest and Sita, the goddess of fortune, Lord Ram is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And Sita is Lakshmi, or Radharani, if we look at Radha Krishna, right? And she didn't have to go to the forest, because what does it mean going to the forest? What does it mean? Austerity. There's no servants to bring you prasadam, right? Or bhoga, in the case of the Supreme Lord, right? There's nobody to make your bed or to iron your clothes. Wash and iron your clothes. It's austere living in a forest, right? Especially if you're living in, living in Dandakaranya forest was probably more of a dream forest than living in, say, the Otways, the forests of the Great Dividing Range, right? But even still, it's austere. So how does that make a devotee feel? Sad. Sad. What else? Pain. We feel pain. Why do you feel pain?
Because the Lord Ram has to go through much austerity as well as others.
Yeah. Sylvia? Why do you feel sad? Yeah. And he doesn't have to do that. Why does he do that? If he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, why does he go through this trouble? Why did he do that? Why did Lord Ram go to the forest? Loudly? To set what kind of an example? Father. He wanted to please his father. His father was a devotee, great devotee, otherwise he wouldn't have been the father of Lord Ram. Loudly?
For pleasing the devotees and waiting for sabri and honoring his commitments.
What was the second one?
There is a devotee named Sabri in the forest waiting for him.
Waiting for him. There were devotees in the forest waiting for him. Monkeys, amongst other things. It's a very, and so I remember when I first read the Ramayana, I actually stopped reading it because I just felt so sad. I just said, this is tragic. None of this has to happen. Why doesn't his stepmother behave herself? And not create this whole conundrum, turmoil, tension, right? Tension. And so, and it's interesting, we were reading the other day, and this is, as I asked Bhaktivedanta Prabhu yesterday, it's commonly understood in the recounting of the pastimes, one of the morals or one of the stories, one of the lessons behind the pastimes of Lord Ramchandra is to illustrate the difficulties or the dangers of attachment to wife, a man's attachment to a woman, and vice versa, right? So much of it revolves on that premise. Yet, and even though that may be true, right, because we can see that Dasarath was attached to his wife, right? But she was polluted by, and bad association is an interesting element of the story, right? Because she was afflicted by envy after being polluted by her maid, isn't it? Her servant, maid servant, right? Although there must have been some seed of that desire. So Dasarath fulfilled the promise that he'd made to his wife, but it broke his heart because he sent his son away. So, this is why it's hard to understand. It's like, what is he doing? Didn't have to do that. He should have just chastised his wife. But he couldn't. Right? So it illustrates the pitfalls of material attachments, right? Which we all learn. It's in the Bhagavad Gita. But it also teaches us some interesting lessons about the nature and the quality of the Lord, right? And it also teaches us a lot of lessons about the nature and the qualities of a devotee, right? And that's why Lord Ram's pastimes are so endearing and so beloved of the devotees, because they illustrate the sweetness of the relationships that the Lord has with his devotees, right? And that even though there are these challenges, the Lord engages in those pastimes, acts as if being an ordinary human being, but at the same time also demonstrating his special prowess, special potency as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the devotees, while there's that pain and that sadness, at the same time there's that relish, right, of the power and the potency of the Supreme Lord and his transcendent character, which is demonstrated, killing demons and pleasing the devotees in the very, very sweet pastimes as an ordinary human being, apparently. So that's very an interesting meditation. So Prabhupada makes the point here, the Lord doesn't have to do anything. Natasya karyam. He doesn't have any obligations to anyone, right? And in fact, he doesn't really do anything, right? The whole material creation is going on as a result of his energies. And the example is given, Prabhupada often gives this example of a fire in a fireplace, right? Or the sun in the sky, right? At the moment the sun's in the sky, but you don't really feel it. Although actually, in the last few weeks, if you sit in the sun and you're in a shaded spot, the sun's very pleasant, right? I was thinking, I often sit outside on my veranda at home, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and chant in the sun, and it's beautiful. And I think sometimes we'll better check the sun, the UV, right? Because if you sit in the sunshine in November, what happens? You get cooked, right? You get cooked. It's dangerous, right? So the sun is in the sky, right? And so in one sense, it's and we know it's a long distance away, right? Yet at the same time, we feel the presence of the sun wherever we are. Unless it's night time, of course. But of course, as Prabhupada makes the point, the night time is because the sun isn't present. So it's directly related to the sun and the sunshine. But just as the fire in the room, this is an analogy to describe Lord Vishnu, just as a fire sits in the fireplace, yet we can feel its presence. Like, anybody here got a fire and a fireplace? What are you using? Reverse cycle air conditioner, right? That's what we use these days, pretty much, most efficient. But we can feel, and the reverse cycle air conditioners sitting up on the wall, right? But we can feel its presence by the heat within the room, right? When I go over to Sri Chaitanya's place, everybody's in t-shirts, right? And it's like being in Mumbai. I have to take my jacket off. God, it's hot in here. Right? So the heat's coming from the fire, ordinarily in the fireplace. Right? And from the fireplace we get the heat, we also get the light. Right? So similarly, Lord Vishnu is situated in the spiritual world. Right? But his presence can be felt through the manifestation of all of his energies. The sun is a good example. The sun emanates heat and light. Also, that's why these two examples, Prabhupada uses them to illustrate how Lord Vishnu doesn't do anything, but he's able to maintain the whole creation by the expansion of his energies. Right? And it's very interesting. Because we're disconnected, we see things as being separate from him. But that's actually Maya, that's illusion. Actually, just as the heat and light of the sun is connected to the sun, and just as the heat and light of the fire in a fireplace is connected, the heat and light from the fire is connected to the fire, so similarly, all of the Lord's creation is connected to him, just that we don't see it. Right? When we become Krishna conscious, or when we become aware of the Lord and his energies, and we identify the connection, then we realize there's no separation. Right? So, the Lord's activities are under the influence of his energies, right? Not under the influence of the material energy, but under the influence of the spiritual energy, Antaranga Shakti. So even though the activities of Lord Ram and Sita appear to be like those of ordinary human beings, we have to understand that they're not. Right? And so even though we feel sad or aggrieved when Dasarath sends his son off to the forest, right? This is not as a result of material reactions, but it is a result of the influence of the spiritual energy, right? What's called the Ladini Shakti. And that actually these pastimes give Krishna, and in this case Lord Ramchandra, great pleasure. And they give the devotees great pleasure. Like we get, like, it was so, what's the word? It was so pleasing actually to see all of the performances of the dramas on Saturday. Did you go? Yeah, I know you went. I saw you there. when we hear these pastimes, even though there's conflict, even there's fighting, right? Lord Ramchandra, it mentions here, he killed Ravana with a shower of arrows, right? Or another thing, you know, when Ram was competing, is this the right way to put it? Competing for Sita's hand, right? He was competing. Then it's described in the Bhagavatam, it describes how his activities were like that of a baby elephant. Right? Have you ever seen a baby elephant? What's a baby elephant? Seeing a baby elephant, what is that? What does it feel like? Cute. Yeah, entertaining. Right? There's a video on YouTube of a baby elephant chasing a dog. Right? But you know, and so the baby elephant's running around chasing the dog, but every time it tries to catch the dog switches this way, that way. And then after a couple of minutes, the baby elephant goes, so you're right, it's cute. So the pastime of Lord Ramchandra breaking the bow that was carried by 300 men, right? This the bow of, you know, it was a challenge. Whoever could string that bow was qualified then to marry Sita. Is that right? Yeah. So what did Lord Ramchandra do with the bow? he just string it, and broke it. And it's described like a baby elephant breaks a bit of sugarcane. So this is very endearing. All of this is very endearing to the devotees, and as a result of hearing these pastimes, the devotees become purified, right, and happy. It's not a material activity. You know, if you go to the movies and watch some mundane movie, then the activities of the actors just inflame the observer with material desires. Right? That's what happens. But if we're hearing about the pastimes of Lord Ram and meditating on those pastimes, the material desires are purified. It's sublime in that it purifies the consciousness. So we need to look at the pastimes of the Lord in the context, and that's why Prabhupada quotes this verse. Na tasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. That the Lord doesn't have to act, and that there's nobody equal or superior to him, right? So even though it appears sometimes he becomes subservient to his devotees, right? Or even sometimes it appears as if the Lord has accepted some kind of setback, right? It's not. He's only performing those activities under the influence of his spiritual energy in order to relish the different relationships that he has with his devotees, and so the devotees also can relish and revel in that engagement or in that relationship with the Lord. So the Lord's pastimes have to be seen in that context, that it's all being orchestrated. What is it? Svabhaviki Jnana what is it? Svabhaviki. Let me have a look. I'll look it up. It's here. Svabhaviki Jnana Bala Kriya Cha. Right. All of the activities that are taking place are being performed by his internal potency, by his internal energy. And always it's for the pleasure of the devotees, and of course for the pleasure of the Lord himself. So whilst externally we might take lessons from the pastimes of Lord Ramchandra, and which is implied, it may not be stated, but it's certainly implied by the behaviour of Dasarath, the behaviour of Kaikeyi, the behaviour of Bharat, and of course the behaviour of Lord Ram. And as is pointed out here, Lord Ram, being the supreme controller, doesn't have to make friends with monkeys. Right? Doesn't have to make friends with monkeys to beat Ravana. It's interesting, isn't it? Hanuman the devotee appears to be greater than Lord Ram. Why is that? Yeah, and he flew to Lanka. Lord Ram could have flown to Lanka, wouldn't have been a problem, right? In fact, I think he flew back, didn't he? Right? But he had to build a bridge to get to Lanka, right? As part of the Leela. But of course, building a bridge in a totally, unconventional way by having the rocks, the stones float, defying gravity, floating on the water of the ocean, of the sea. So, these pastimes and activities of the Lord are all appreciated within the context of this is all arranged for the pleasure of the Lord. Even the kidnapping of Sita and the separation. And we can appreciate, there's a saying, separation makes the heart grow fonder. Right? So in that context, we can appreciate that the pastimes of the Lord are performed under they're not material, even though there may be some material lessons learnt from that. Primarily the lessons to be learnt are spiritual by nature, when we understand that everything is taking place under the auspices of the Lord's internal energy, internal potency. Okay, I might finish here. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Sibya. I think we need a new set of microphones. What do you reckon? Can you arrange it, Rasikendra? Hey?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the nice class.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, you mentioned that Lord Ram's pastimes are not under the material influence, but under the spiritual influence.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
is it that Lord Yoga Maya is helping Lord Ram's pastimes in Ayodhya, just as she helps Lord Krishna in Vrindavan?
So that last bit again, is it?
Is it that Yoga Maya helps Lord Ram perform his pastimes in Ayodhya, just like she helps Lord Krishna when he's playing
Yes.
in Vrindavan?
The answer is yes. Yes. Krishna has many potencies. He has his Leela Shakti, which manages he has his Kripa Shakti, which is one of the most powerful Shakti, his mercy, his concern for the devotees, most powerful. He has his Aishvarya, Shakti, I guess, the opulence of being the Supreme Personality of Godhead and being the Supreme Controller, but sometimes that's overpowered by the Leela Shakti. Just like, and even if Krishna appears as a baby, he still remains the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But we see the potency of the Leela Shakti when Mother Yasoda chases Krishna with a stick and he runs off because he's scared, right? So how come the Supreme Personality of Godhead is scared? Right? And even of his mum. Who's scared of their mother? You are? You are. Okay, good. My mum used to threaten us with a wooden spoon. By the time I got to 10 years old, that was not a threat. You going to hit me with a wooden spoon? Yeah, okay, come on. Yep, so the Lord has different energies, potencies, and they compete for supremacy sometimes. And so eventually in that case, the Kripa, the mercy potency overrode everything else after Mother Yasoda had tried thousands of lengths of rope to try to tie up Krishna, right? And none of them worked. None of them worked. They were always too short. But then because of Mother Yasoda's effort, right, that evoked, that love and affection that Mother Yasoda demonstrated in trying to tie Krishna up, that evoked the Kripa Shakti of the Lord, and so she was eventually able to tie it. Her effort and his mercy, he was able, or the Kripa Shakti, she was able to tie him up. All under the, I guess you could say, all under the auspices of the Yoga Maya principle. Right? So the answer is yes. All right. Anything else? Or shall we go to school? What do you think? Or go to breakfast? Which do you prefer, breakfast or school? Breakfast. Yeah. But if you've got to go to school, you have no choice. Okay, Grantharaj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Lord Ramchandra ki jai.